So what we're going to do is we're going to calculate n. And it's actually really easy. You just step right through it. So we start off with s. S is going to be the number of points in the minimal set. Okay? P, the probability of success. This is, I want to have probability of P that at least one of my samples will be a correct set of points. Now E, we said before, is the proportion of outliers. So what's the proportion of inliers? Well, if the proportion of outliers is 20%, the inliers is 80%, just 1 minus E. Okay? All right, now we start with just a little bit of combinatorics. All right, so let's suppose I pick S of these things. What's the probability that they're all inliers? Well, if the probability of being an inlier is 1 minus E, the probability that they're all S are inliers is 1 minus E to the S. I'm assuming that there are a lot of points to choose from, so that the fact that I've pulled one out doesn't diminish things. It's a pretty good approximation. Okay, so that's the probability that all of the points in the sample I pulled are inliers. So what's the probability that at least one of those is an outlier? Well, 1 minus that. Okay, so that's just 1 minus E to the S. Okay, so if I pull out n sets, what's the probability that all n are outliers? Well, given that my sets are independent, so it's just this 1 minus E to the S, all raised to the n. Okay, so that's the probability that all n samples have an outlier. Okay, but of course, what we want is the probability that all of them are outliers. So that means they were all bad. We want that probability to be really small. That is, less than 1 minus the probability of the success. So judging here, right, so if P here was 99%, 1 minus P would be 1%. We want the probability that they were, all of our samples had at least one outlier in them. We want that to be less than 1%. So that means that we can now just substitute in, and we get this ugly expression, 1 minus E to the S to the n has to all be less than 1 minus P. Drum roll, please. We can solve for n, and bingo, there is our equation. N's got to be greater than the log of 1 minus P divided by the log of 1 minus E to the S. And I'm sure you all have deep intuitions for what that looks like. No? Okay, let's look at some representative values.